Hey everyone, we're going to go over the basics of Envidas Ultimate. Some of you that are here now already know the basics, the difference between setup and the viewer program and reporter, but there are some users here that are completely new to Ultimate. So I'm just going to first go over the icons, and then we'll get into the setup program. So the Envidas Ultimate setup program itself, which looks like this icon here, this is where you configure all of your instruments, all your parameters, any type of alerts, site name, information about the site, such as longitude, latitude, the location of the site. And then once you configure everything in the setup program, you would open this viewer program, and this is where you would view the data live. So this would be all the live data that's happening right now. And this program is also used to troubleshoot any communication problems that you're having with instruments. And then you have the reporter program. This is where you can look at historical data. The service manager. This is the program that's used to restart the Envidas Ultimate service. So anytime you make changes in the setup program, for those changes to be reflected in the viewer program, you have to use this program here to restart the Ultimate service. And as we can see, the service is already running down here at the bottom. And to restart that, you would just right-click it and click Restart. And then the last program there is Camera View. With this program, you have cameras at the site. You can remote into the site and open this program, and you would see all of the cameras on the screen there. This is a new database, so I don't have anything set up here. So let's go ahead and dive into the setup program. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you open the setup program, we're just going to go ahead and create a new site. And we're just going to call it Test for a Webinar. You can enter a location if you would like. Let's put in Heath, Ohio here. This export path and also this import file path, this can be used if you have multiple sites that are alike. What you can do is you can configure one site, so you would add the site and you would configure all of it, and then once you're done, you could export the configuration, and then you could load that configuration file on another logger, and it would be an exact replica of this setup. So we went ahead and added that site. So what we're going to do is go ahead and click the site there. And from here you can add information such as the site code, latitude, longitude, and elevation. You can choose whether to save instant data files or instant data for calibrations. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to add our time bases. So we're going to go ahead and add a 1, 5, and 60-minute time base. And we'll go ahead and click Save. And then once we've done that, we can expand communication and we can start adding instruments. Least is also another name for it is, RS-232 instruments. So we'll go ahead and add some RS-232 instruments. So we would choose, we're just, as an example, we're going to connect the API 400 to port 1. So after we connected the instrument, we would click the least, select COM1, check on the instrument what baud rate, the parity, data bits, stop bits, and flow control are set up for the RS-232 port on the instrument. Once we configured everything on this screen, we can go ahead and add the port. Once we add the port, we would click it there in the tree, and then we would select Add Analyzer. And we're going to go ahead and select the API from the list there. And we'll just say API 400, and then we'll click Add. Once we've added the instrument, this will auto-populate the sample options. You can adjust that if you would like. So next we're going to go to the Device tab. You'll want to verify that this device ID matches the device ID on the instrument. Typically it's set to, I think, 0 on the instrument, but we auto-populate it with 400. It's just easier to, if you have an API 400, to obviously set the device ID to 400 as well. So once you verify that that matches the instrument, you should be good. So then this registers list. This is where you can pull, you can look at the manual of the instrument, and if there is another register that's listed in the manual, you can add it to this list. So let's look. So if there was a register in the manual, if you wanted to, for example, pull the status, if there was a register named status, you could just type in status there. And then when we add the channel, we'll reference that channel to the status register. So we'll go ahead and click Save there. The next tab on the instrument is Diagnostics. What you can do is say Get Default, and this will auto-populate the diagnostics for the instrument. If this does not auto-populate, you can get the list and then send it to us, and we can add it to the program. Once we load those, we can click this Collect Every 30 minutes, and 30 minutes is the default. We recommend 30 minutes, but you can adjust that accordingly. We'll go ahead and click Save there. The next tab is the digital status. Go ahead and click this Get Default, and we'll click Save there. And then, as we can see here, we have this column that's called Alarm. So what this will do is it will send an alarm. For example, if the instrument can't zero. If we click this checkbox here, it will send an alarm if the instrument can't zero. We can save that. There is also another tab called Spare Parts. If you have a parts list, you can import it into here, and it can be referenced. So now that we've added the instrument, we can go ahead and expand the instrument by clicking the little plus symbol there. And then we would select channels. We're going to call our first channel 03. Click Add. And then we'll add that status register, or status channel that we added to the register list. So after we added those two channels, we can go ahead and select them from the list. And then you'll want to reference that channel that you just created to that register. So 03 obviously goes to 03, and status will go to status. And then we'll click Save. And then from here, You could fill in any of this information here that you would like, the units, serial number, low, high range, threshold, stuff like that. We'll go ahead and click Save here. Here's the Digital Monitor Status Validation tab. We can go ahead and click Load Monitor List. So what this will do is, if the instrument can't zero, and we have this checkbox checked, it will invalidate the data. Or if it can't span, for example, if we have this checked here, then the data will be invalidated. If we select off, which we want to do, anytime that the instrument can zero, then it would be invalidated. So we won't want to do that. So just leave that on, and we'll just go ahead and uncheck these two here. Next tab is I/O validation. So with this tab here, you can invalidate the data based on an input or an output. We currently don't have any atoms configured, so we won't go into detail on this. So what we could do though is say that if there was a output, a 5069 for an example, we would invalidate the data when the output is on, and we would set the data to just set it to, we'll just say no data, and then we would click add there. So it would invalidate the data anytime that input is on, or I'm sorry, output. Anytime the output is on, the data would be invalidated. This next tab is alarms. So what you can do is you can configure Ultimate to send emails or an alert pop-up anytime that a alarm is triggered. And we'll just go ahead and configure a quick alarm here. So once we click the Alarms tab, we click Add New. We'll say anytime the 1 minute value is below, we'll just say 0.02, you could tell it to trigger a digital output. But what we're just going to do is we're going to tell it to send an alert. And we're going to say O3 below 0.02. And we're going to save that. And then once we added that alarm there, we'll need to configure this in the email settings. So if you expand alert settings there, and click email settings, we'll want to turn the state to on. And then you could use your own email server here. Your IT could provide you with a email for this, but we're going to use ours here. So I just sent a test email to myself, and I should get that any minute here. So now that we have that configured, we can go ahead and click Save there. You can also enable this option here that sends an email daily, just to let you know that the email server is working. We're just going to leave that off. Okay, so we got the email server set up, and we'll be able to receive alarms there. The next thing, modem. Not too many of you will probably need to worry about this tab. But if you didn't have a high-speed connection at the site, or if you didn't have any cellular router, you could install a modem on the computer, and you could configure Ultimate to be pulled via the modem. And that's where you would do that here. TCP/IP. Under TCP/IP, the default listed here is this loopback address followed by 3699 and 3698. You don't want to delete either of these. These will always stay in here, and what that is for is any events in the request servers. So in order for the viewer program to communicate with the setup program, these two need to stay in here. So what it does is the viewer uses TCP sockets to communicate with the Ultimate setup. So let's say that we're going to communicate with a TCP instrument. Currently we are on a (192.168.0.136) network. So let's say that we have a TCP instrument at the site, and we've already set the IP address of it. So the IP address would obviously be something like 192.168.0. We'll just say 100. So the instrument IP is 192.168.0.100. So we would put that in here, 192.168.0.100. We would refer to the manual and find out what the TCP port is. We'll just say 3002. We'll click Add TCP. And then from there we would do the same thing. We would add analyzer. We'll just say another API. We'll say 400E for Ethernet. And we'll click Net or Add. And then from there it's basically the same thing. You could change the sample timeout, the sample rate. You would check the device ID with the Ethernet instrument and make sure that's correct. You could add statuses or registers. I want to click Save there. We would load the default diagnostics, default digital statuses. We would add the channels. Again, be sure to reference the channel to the correct register. And again, those come from this device tab on the instrument. So status goes to status. And that's pretty much it with adding the instruments. A lot of, or a question that we get quite a bit is, how do you delete a channel? This comes up a lot. So to delete a channel, what you would first do is you would select the channel by clicking it, and then you would just tap the delete key on your keyboard. So this message will come up. It's going to ask you if you want to also delete all data values for this channel. So this would delete all historical data. We don't have any historical data, so we really don't care at this point, so we're just going to say yes. And that will delete the channel. We can go ahead and click Save. And it's the same way with the instruments. If you want to delete an instrument, you just tap delete, save it. Same way with the port. You can either delete it, or if, for example, if you wanted to change the instrument to a different port, you could just select the port and say you're moving it to port 7. You would just select it. Well, we don't have 7 ports. We would just change it to port 4, click save. But if you did want to delete it, you just hit delete there. Just click yes and then save it. This FX other here, this is where you can add, virtual channels. Let's see, or calculated. So what we could do is add a calculated channel here, and we'll just call it test. So we'll select the channel, and then we could click this formula button here. And we could say the test channel equals 03 plus status, return test. So what this is going to do, this is just only an example. This wouldn't really work. It's taking, this calculated channel is taking this channel plus this channel, and that's what it's going to input for this test channel. So test equals 03 plus status, return test. That's obviously not going to work. But you would add the formula there. You would click that enable, and then you would save it so it can create the DLLs. Again, you can add the units for this calculated channel, any low and high ranges, stuff like that. This next thing is the sequence. So what we would do is, we're just going to call it test. We'll say it's on. You can turn it on based on a DO or digital input. We're not going to worry about that because we don't have any set up. You can select a schedule if you want it to run daily. Obviously, if it's selected to run daily, it will, but sometimes it's a little confusing that it says daily, but you don't see any of these selected. So what you can do is just go ahead and select all of them. Why did I say that? Daily. And then once we do that, we'll click Add. And now we see our test sequence there. So what we'll do is click Sequence. And we'll add some phases. So we'll say 0, span, purge, sample. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then, just as an example, we'll expand 03 and we'll reference this sequence. So we'll expand 03, we'll select calibrations, and it's already listed there. If you had multiple sequences, you could obviously select them from that list. We'll go ahead and click Add Calibration. You'll see that test shows up there. Go ahead and click that. And then here is where we would configure the calibration. So we're going to say 03. Actually, we'll say 04, 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to 0 4 minutes, and then it's going to take a 1-minute sample, or a 1-minute average there. And you can see it shows the 0, phase 0, and then where the measurement is here. So here we're going to go, we'll span for 3 minutes. So from 5 to 8, but we'll run for 3 minutes. And then we'll take a sample for 2 minutes. And then you would enter the reference value here. We'll just say 400. And we'll click Save. So that calibration is set up there. And if we scroll over, we can see the phases and then how long it's measuring there. The next thing is, we covered the alerts there. We didn't talk about this SMS. Not a lot of people use this, but it is an option. If you have a SMS modem, you can configure it to send text messages to a cell phone based on the alert. So if a value went above a certain level, it could send a message to a cell phone, or a text message to a cell phone. The next thing we'll talk about is the users. This is recommended when you first set up a site to just go ahead and go in here and create a user. We'll just create a user called drdas, and a password of drdas. Of course, if you want the user to receive email or cell phone or text messages to their cell phone, you want to enter that information in here. And then you would also need to select receive SMS alerts or receive email alerts there. So we'll go ahead and click Add, and we'll click Save. And now that we've added the user, you'll see if we close out of Ultimate and we reopen it, we should need a login. Actually, what I should do is restart the service as well. We'll see. And here is that test email that I sent earlier. I recommend you do send a test email before, or I'm sorry, after you get done setting up your alerts. It would be a good idea to just test and make sure everything does work. So now, after we created the user, it's requiring us to log in before we run any of the software. So we'll type in drdas here, drdas, and then we'll click Login. Okay, the next thing is the sound record. What this does is you can set up a microphone at the site, and based on an alarm or an alert, it could start recording sound at the site. The next one is this video record. And let's see. A lot of people ask about this too, so I'll just go over setting up. Okay. So to add a camera at the site, we recommend, TCP cameras. What you would do is first select video record. We're just going to call it test camera. And then we're going to select IP camera from the list. You would put in, I guess I didn't type that, huh? You would put in the URL of the camera and a link to the CGI. Now, there's this box here that lists the defaults for a lot of cameras. So you could just copy this and then put in the IP address of the camera there. So then we need to put in the username and password. This is saying it's just user and FOSCAM. So we'll click Add there. We'll click Save. And we'll see if this is the correct one. Ah, there we go. So I'm connected to, this camera is actually in California, and we're in Ohio. So now that we have the camera, you could actually configure alerts based on the camera. So let's go ahead and click Close there. You could also go over to the Save option, and you could tell Ultimate to take an image every, say you wanted to take an image at the site every 15 minutes. You would select this box here. You would choose what folder you want those files saved in. The file naming convention, it adds you know, the date to that and also the time. What format, BMP or JPEG. And of course, then you want the image saved. Let's just run back to alerts really quick here. So we'll click Add New. We'll say 5 minutes, above 2. So what we would do is we would tell the camera, now that we got it configured, that we want it to take an image, or we want it to start recording anytime the value is above 2. So we'll select our camera from the list there. We'll click Save. We'll select it from the bottom after we saved it. And we click this More button. And we can either tell it to record video or to just take an image. So this maximum images, this is how many images it will take while the alert is active. Take image every, the default is 20 seconds. If you wanted to, you can just say, you know, 1. Same thing with the video. You can adjust the minimum video length and also the maximum video length. And then here's the file naming convention. Puts in the date and time. Okay. I think we've pretty much covered the basics in the setup program itself. I want to open up the view program just briefly, just to talk about the communications. A lot of people call and say, you know, hey, I'm having trouble communicating with this instrument. So let's say that we've added an instrument on port 1, and we're not seeing any data for some reason in the viewer. Okay, so we have an instrument and also some channels. Save that. And we'll start the service. So we're already running. Okay, let's look and see. It might not connect. This is my test version of Ultimate here. connected to the same database. Okay, so viewers connected to a different database, but we can still go ahead and take a look at it here. So once you add an instrument here in the setup program, you would restart the service. So after you add the instrument, save it, restart the service, you open up viewer, and let's say you're getting an RS-232 error. That means you're not communicating with the instrument. So what you would do is there's this nice feature, this traces tab. You would select communication, and you would select the port that that instrument is connected to. So if it's connected to port 3, we would open that up. And I don't have any instruments connected right now. But we would actually see Ultimate sending a command to the instrument, and we would see the instrument responding to those commands. If we come in here and we see Ultimate sending commands, but we're not getting anything back, that tells us that we're not in sync with the instrument. We're not able to talk to it. And typically, in this case, when this happens, the very first thing that you want to do is you want to go back into setup, and you want to select the instrument, and you want to go to that device tab and verify that that device ID matches what you have configured on the instrument. So you'll want to go over to the instrument, bring up the setup, and just verify that device ID there. If that looks good, next thing you want to check is check your baud rates. Make sure everything configured here matches what's on the instrument. Another thing you could check, if everything looks good there, you could check that the DTE switch on the back of the instrument. A lot of people call in and are having trouble communicating with their instruments, and usually it's that switch on the back. And if it's not that switch, it's the cable. So I think we pretty much covered the basics of Ultimate. Is there any questions?
Hello, Randy. It's Richard from Metro Vancouver. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Richard.
Just wondering if we can somehow import our config.dat and calib.dat files from FW into Ultimate somehow.
That is not possible.
Okay.
But once you configure one site, you can just transfer the configuration to the other site, if they're similar.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
We're getting a double voice when you're answering the question, so I didn't actually hear the answer to it.
Yeah, he was asking if there was a way to import the EFW configuration into Ultimate for those upgrading from EFW to Ultimate. And yes, there's currently no way to do that. You basically have to go through and manually configure the site.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Alrighty then. Well, thank you all for joining the webinar today, and everyone have a good day.